Okay, so a few of you might be wondering why I re-uploaded this video, because I actually uploaded this video like last night and then I realized I made a mistake, so I'm re-uploading it, and it already had like over 6,000 views. So if you're confused, I said in this video that the minimum size wheel for mice is 15 centimeters. And I didn't realize until now that I actually meant to say 20 centimeters, and I don't even use a 15 centimeter wheel. I don't know where that came from. I've always used a 20 centimeter wheel, so I'm not sure why I said that, but I meant to say 20 centimeters is the bare minimum wheel for mice, but also 25 centimeters is a good size as well. Yeah, I'm sorry about that. I really felt like I had to re-upload the whole video because I didn't want anyone to get a 15 centimeter wheel, because I said that in my video, and I know not everyone would read the comments if I just left a comment about it, so I wanted to repost the whole video. Hey guys, it's Sudi here and welcome back to another video. Today I'm talking about 10 of the most common mistakes that I feel like mice owners make. So making mistakes while owning pets is kind of part of owning pets sometimes. It is totally normal to make mistakes, we all have. It's just important that you learn from those mistakes. So today I'm talking about what I think is some of the most common mistakes that people make in mouse care, and hopefully this video can help you on your mouse care and you can find out if you're making some of these mistakes. Now, there's a lot of mistakes that people can make in mouse care that I might not talk about in this video, so that's why you should always do a lot of research before you get your animals. I do have another care guide kind of video on mice as well you can watch if you want, but yeah, if you're planning on getting mice, make sure you do a lot of research beforehand. Okay, number one, the mistake that I think is the biggest mistake people make is having too small of a cage for their mice. So a lot of pet stores sell these really terrible tiny little plastic cages for mice, and even pet stores in my country sell these horrible tiny wired cages, and they're just really way too small for mice. They should really only be travel cages. With plastic cages, often mice can actually chew through them because they can chew through plastic. The minimum size cage is about 60 centimeters long and 30 centimeters wide. I would probably more recommend this size for just one like male mouse. For two like female mice, I'd probably recommend bigger. Bigger is always better. Mice do need a lot of space, and I think a lot of people also think that mice like to have the very tall cages, the tall and skinny cages. I really don't like these cages, and I just don't think that they're suitable for mice at all. Unfortunately, that's like the only mouse cage that pet stores near me sell. They sell these horrible little cages, and I see a lot of people in New Zealand mouse groups with those cages, and they're just really not suitable at all. Mice really do prefer the longer cages. For my mouse cage, I use a large fish tank, which is a 150 litre fish tank. I only have two mice in there now, but I could probably put more in there, but I'm just sticking with two at the moment because I'm not totally sure if I actually want to get more mice. But yeah, I like the style of using fish tanks as cages. You do have to make sure that you have a secure lid though. Okay, number two is no bedding or not enough bedding. So I've seen many cages in the mice groups that I'm in that have literally no bedding for their mice at all, or they just have a very thin layer of bedding. I think a lot of people don't realize that mice actually do benefit a lot from having a lot of bedding in their cage, like other animals do, like hamsters do. Mice are burrowing animals, so they like to have a lot of bedding in their cage so they can burrow into it. I actually used to not have as much bedding in my cage as I do now, because I kind of realized how much my mice really enjoy burrowing into the bedding, so I add a lot more into my cage now than I used to, and they definitely seem to really love that. They always are burrowing in there, and they like to sleep in their little tunnels they make and stuff like that. There is a lot of different kinds of bedding you can get. You can mix up the bedding and use multiple different types. I now use clean and cozy bedding, which I think is a lot cheaper in other countries. In my country, it's actually super expensive. It's like $50 for a very small tube of clean and cozy bedding, but my mice really like it, so now that's what I use in my cage. But you can use aspen shavings. I feel like personally they're a bit too, I don't know, it's too sharp. I don't know, I did actually used to use aspen shavings, but I actually prefer the clean and cozy a lot more. Hemp bedding is another good option, and I actually might try hemp bedding one day because it is a bit cheaper than clean and cozy is. Number three is housing female mice alone, and also housing male mice with other males. So in case you don't know, female mice do need to be kept in at least pairs or more. Mice are very social animals, and I don't recommend that you keep a female mice by herself because they can get depressed, and yeah, they just don't like being alone. And a lot of people seem to think that because they spend time with their mouse, that their mouse won't get lonely, but they still will, because they still need that mouse interaction. Human interaction is really not the same for them, so you do need to keep female mice in at least pairs. Male mice are the complete opposite, basically. They can be very territorial and aggressive towards other mice, and if you keep two male mice together, they will often fight to the death. So and that happens quite often. People don't realize that they can't really be housed together. You know, sometimes it can be done. You know, sometimes you can have two boys that were in the same litter and have been brought up their whole life, and they might live together fine. But there still is that risk of them one day just fighting, and it's really up to you if you want to take that risk. But I have heard of it being done fine, but there's still always that risk. I actually would highly recommend neutering a male mouse, and that way you can keep the male mouse with females. That's actually what I did. I had a male mouse, his name was Cornflake. I got him neutered and he lived with my girls, and they were so happy together. So if that's a possibility, I would actually really highly recommend that, because mice are very social animals. In the wild, they live together in big groups, you know? We can't really replicate the same environment of the wild in our cages, so that's why we can't keep males together in cages. So yeah, I actually highly recommend you get a male neutered, and that way he can live with girls and have a, you know, happy social life. Possibly you can neuter two males and put them together. That might reduce their aggressiveness, but I'm not sure how well that works. I've not done that before. I've not really heard of that being done before. I would more recommend you neuter one male and put him with a group of females. I'm sure he'll be very happy. My mice were very happy together, and they would always be cuddling each other, and it was so cute. Sadly, my male mouse did pass away a little while ago now, and it was very upsetting. But yeah, I did a whole video on him getting neutered and stuff like that, and the procedure and the caring for him afterwards, if you're interested in seeing that. Okay, that was meant to be two things. It was meant to be number 3, housing female mice alone, and number 4, housing males with other mice. So let's pretend that was 2 sections, okay? Number 5 is using too small of a wheel, or incorrect wheel styles. So I see so many people using these wheels for their mice that are just way too small. Unfortunately, pet stores sell these wheels that are like ridiculous size. Like literally, there's like a pet store near me, and the wheels they sell are like this big, and like there is no animal that can fit in a wheel this big. Like not even a dwarf hamster. Like that's just way too small. We don't even have hamsters here, so do they expect a mouse to live in a wheel this big? I really hope people don't use those wheels. But yeah, often pet stores will sell these very tiny, horrible wheels that can cause a lot of back problems for your mice. It can curve their spine. If your mouse is curving their spine on the wheel, it means that their wheel is way too small. The minimum size wheel I would recommend is 15 centimeters. Again, I meant to say 20 centimeter wheel in this part, not 15. 20 centimeters is the bare minimum size for a mouse wheel. That is the size wheel I have, and it seems to be a perfect size for my mice. If you happen to have quite a big mouse, and you might want to go bigger than that. Also, you shouldn't use wire wheels or those barred wheels. They can sometimes cause bumblefoot in mice. It is a bit more common with hamsters, but it can happen with mice as well, and it's just not worth the risk in my opinion. Also, they can get their feet stuck in those wheels sometimes, which can literally break their feet, which obviously you don't want. So it's just not worth the risk of using those wheels. Much safer to just use those flat plastic wheels or even wooden wheels. Number 6 is buying mice from pet stores. So this can differ like in your country. Where I live in my area, there isn't actually really much pet stores that sell much animals. Most pet stores here just sell fish, which is actually a good thing. But there is one pet store near me that sells mice, and I really don't like that pet store because their mouse enclosures are filthy, they stink, and they're very small, and they sell these tiny mouse cages, and I would never buy mice from them. And also in countries like America and the more bigger countries, mice and other rodents come from breeding mills, which are these really terrible breeding facilities that mistreat their animals. They're in terrible conditions. Most of them don't make it to the pet stores, and they're just horrible. When you're buying an animal from one of those chain pet stores, you're supporting those horrible breeding mills, and often your mouse will probably be very skittish. It could be aggressive towards people because it's not used to people. Often they don't actually have a lot of interaction with people, so they can be very hard to tame, and you need to have a lot more patience and time to tame mice from those chain pet stores. A lot of the time people would get their first mouse from like Petco or PetSmart and all those other American pet stores, and they'll be like, why is my mouse so scared of me and biting me? I want a new one, you know, I don't want an aggressive mouse. But the reason is because those mice are not used to people, or they're used to people hurting them, so they're gonna be skittish, they might be aggressive, you just have to be patient with them, you know. But I would recommend you either look into a rescue if you do have mouse rescues near you. There isn't really any in my country, but I know in other countries you guys have like mouse rescues and stuff, so definitely look into that first. But also a good breeder is honestly one of the best options if you want to have a really tame mouse. There's a lot of great breeders out there. Obviously there's a lot of really bad ones, but you just have to look into the good ones. You can often tell when they're a good breeder. They usually want to see your setup and make sure that you're going to take good care of the mouse. And yeah, often when you get a mouse from a good breeder, the breeder has spent a lot of time with the mouse, and the mouse is already very tame and comfortable with people. Number 7 is mice need lots of toys and things to do. Another thing I feel like a lot of people don't realize, when I see a lot of cages, often they can be quite bare and not much things to do, just like a wheel and a few hides or something. Mice can be very active. They love playing around on things and running around their cage. And one thing that I would highly recommend that I don't see enough people do is putting lots of hammocks and ladders and fun things in your cage. You can hang lots of things from the top of your cage, all kinds of different hammocks and little cube things and stuff like that. I've got lots of those in my cage and my mice love them. Now they're getting quite old, so they don't use them as much anymore, but they definitely do still really like them. And yeah, it just gives them lots of things to do in their cage. They can pretty much never get bored. Mice also like to chew on things. They like to have chew toys or paper like toys to rip up and stuff like that. They honestly seem to really like having crowded cages. Just like fill it with stuff, honestly. Obviously give them enough room to be able to burrow and stuff like that, but they just love having lots of toys, lots of things to hide in and stuff like that. Number 8, mice are escape artists. So mice are really great climbers, which is why I recommend having lots of toys for them to climb on, but that can also mean they can escape cages, especially those kind of plastic cages, quite easily. Often when people get wired cages, the bar spacing can actually be too big for mice and the mice can fit through it. So you have to make sure that if you do have bars on your cage that they're no bigger than 1/4 of an inch. Mice are very small, they can easily fit through a lot of barred cages. And again, if your cage is made out of plastic, they can possibly chew through that plastic and escape. So you have to be very careful about that kind of stuff. And if you have like a tank as a cage like I do, you have to make sure you have a very secure lid. Often you will have to DIY your own lid for tank cages, which is what I had to do. But yeah, my lid is very secure. It is a wooden framed lid with mesh on it, and it's pretty much impossible for them to escape, thankfully. So make sure you're very careful about that. It is very easy for that to happen. Number 9 is that mice are small and delicate, which I'm sure to most of us is like, you know, pretty obvious, but some people don't realize that, and especially younger kids don't realize how delicate they really are. And that's why I don't really recommend people get mice as pets for very young children. I think you should wait until they're old enough to understand how gentle they have to be with mice. Obviously you know your child best, but if you think that they might be too rough with mice, then probably don't get them mice. Mice are a lot smaller than you think sometimes, especially when you get like a baby mouse. When I got Cornflake, he was so tiny, I couldn't believe how small he was. And even when he was like full size, he was still very small. He was smaller than my girls. But yeah, they're very tiny and very delicate. They're not the kind of animal that you can play with all the time, you know? You can take them out of the cage and spend time with them, but you have to be very gentle with them and just let them do what they want, basically, you know. They're not a toy, basically. So if you're a parent and want to get your kids some mice, make sure they understand how gentle they have to be with them and that they're not toys. They are very delicate living things. Number 10 for our last one for today is that mice can actually be expensive. Really? But this mouse was like $5 from the pet store. Yeah, sure, maybe it is $5, but have you ever had to take a mouse to the vet? So obviously having a good cage and food and all the toys they need can also be costly, but not only that is vet costs. Mice can actually get sick quite easily. It's very common for them to get respiratory infections, as well as female mice can often get tumors. It is actually extremely common for especially females for some reason, but all mice can get tumors and it's very common. Sometimes there's not much you can do about it, but some people will choose to get surgery and remove that tumor. And if you want to neuter mice, it can cost a lot. I probably spent over $250 total on Cornflake, including his neuter and other vet visits after that, you know. Actually probably more than that, honestly. Probably $300 altogether, to be honest. Yeah, vet visits, even just for a checkup, they can be quite expensive. So yeah, you do have to think about that when you're getting a mouse, because a lot of people don't realize is that mouse vet visits are quite expensive, and sometimes you do have to take them to the vet. So I would always recommend that you have some savings, like backup savings in case you do need an emergency vet visit. I understand that not everyone can spend $300 on their mouse to cut their balls off, but so maybe think about that before getting a mouse, and if you think it's possible for you to be able to put enough savings aside in case you do need an emergency vet visit. I have had a couple of emergency vet visits. That was mainly with Cornflake when he was starting to get sick and when he did pass away. But with my female mice, I haven't actually had any issues like that, thankfully. They are like over a year and a half old, I think now. But yeah, they seem to be doing very well. I haven't had to take them to the vet for any emergencies yet, so that's good. But it is always a possibility, you know, you never know what's gonna happen. So yeah, that is 10 common mistakes that mice owners can make. I really hope this video could help you. I do want to do a couple more of these videos on other animals too, so let me know what else you'd like to see. Thanks for watching. Feel free to add some things that I might have missed in this video in the comments below, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye!